You're listening to Up1Notch, a podcast where I explore the tech business world. My name is Mohammad Aoun, and I'm a growth accelerator for tech companies looking to scale their businesses. I'm sitting down with software industry leaders, startup founders, and tech experts. Tune in to hear about the latest and greatest from the tech world. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in into another episode of Up1Notch, a podcast where we talk about the tech business world and startups. And today, my guest is Joseph Vangieri. Hi, Joseph. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, Mohammed. How are you?
Absolutely great. Thank you so much for taking the time for this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's a real pleasure.
Absolutely great. So I'm looking at the acoustic guitar in the background. Do you play yourself?
Yeah, I'm a musician. I've been a producer, a DJ, a software innovator. I launched arguably the first digital DJ software back in '99. It was called PCDJ. It was really cool. So I've been in music my whole life, and I've owned record labels and music, and so I've always made my living in music, and then in music and in software for music.
So let's go back like 20, 22 years and talk about PCDJ, because this is like very early eras of internet and everything, right? So let's talk a little bit more about, like, for example, what did the application do? How did you come to know about, kind of come up with the idea for that? And what did it really do?
Well, it was interesting. As a musician, I was playing at a wedding. I was playing drums. And in between, I heard the music and I didn't know where it was coming from. And a guy had a computer on the floor, literally. And this was '97. And he had was just playing MP3s. I go, MP3s? I go, that's pretty cool. He goes, then he heard about my background. Earlier in my life, I was a DJ, and I had a bunch of DJs working for me all across New York and New Jersey. And I had a DJ pool. And he goes, hey, your background in DJs, do you think if I got two MP3 players, put them together, and we can, I said, let's find out. And then one thing led to another. I ended up with a business partner out of Luleå, Sweden. Early internet days, I was searching around, and I found a developer, and he was already working on it, and he called it the 1200 SL. And at that time, he had about 1,800 beta testers. And so we teamed up together, and we launched the company VisioSonic, and I sold VisioSonic in 2006 to Digital One Media. And I've just been consulting ever since. And when I sold that about 10 years ago, I came to consult for a karaoke record label in Knoxville, Tennessee. I was down in Tampa. And so I came up here, and they needed to come into the digital age from selling CDs. So I did that. And while I was doing it, one thing led to another, and I ended up with ownership of the karaoke record label in the studios. And that was about 10 years ago. And 5 years ago, so I launched a company. And that company was based on our catalog that we've already recorded. The company at that time was in business for over 30 years of recording. So we really understand recording arts, because we record for the sound-alike industry, the karaoke industry. And so we understand all the newest technologies, because we have to make the stuff sound that good. It's got to sound as good as the stuff on the radio, because that's, people suffer no fool. They hear it immediately, right? So hearing is believing. So we've been running these studios, and we've got a lot of 5 mix down suites here, big rooms, smaller rooms, isolation booths, blah, blah, blah. And so we're deeply involved in technology on the music side of it. And music sorely lacks, like in art. There's so much great technology, from Adobe to like Midjourney and DALL-E, OpenAI, what they're doing, and with descriptors on artificial intelligence, and getting something that's pretty close to the approximations of what people are asking for. So, good job. And in the way you talk to it's how you describe, right? Those description fields. So we're early in the forays of description-based music art. And the tack that we have taken was for the professional community first, where we've created something called a plugin. And on Macs, they're called AU, audio units, and on PCs, they're VSTs. And it's a plugin for a digital audio workstation like Pro Tools or Logic or FL Studio. You'll see FL Studio in our videos. If you go to Creator Pro, and we spell Creator KR38R, Creator, and then Pro. Of course, it's got to be spelled cool. I'm the CEO. I run the technology end of things and the music side of things. On the marketing side of things, I'm not, but it's a cool name. I like the name Creator. I like the way we spelled it too. We used Leet Speak to spell it, which is pretty cheeky and fun. I think it's a good marketing gimmick. I think it'll take on. Also, the ability for us now, in the way we approached AI on this part. I know I went off the DJ thing immediately. Sorry. I'm still doing business with my old DJ company, which is great. With PCDJ, we still supply them with catalogs of music that we license. But on our AI side of things, we're creating a product to create music, right? Like our approach to AI, like what's the human AI interface for this? What is it? So we chose not to do something untried. So we chose to do something that producers are doing today. And the producer we're looking at is the new producer, someone new to the music production game. Spend some time on a digital audio workstation, and you see sites out there, non-AI. I mean, like sites like Splice, where people go to get loops to build songs, or loops.com or whatever. And there's a bunch of these loop-based things, and people will piece together loops. So the tack that we've taken is like, okay, we could teach everyone how to write these loops, and they can make these themselves. They don't need to go anywhere else. They can just use this tool and part right out the loop in no time. Like, 3 minutes, you got a loop and you're done. I mean, you made it yourself too. And it was pretty easy to do, and it sounds great. So that's what we use. We hold 7 patents in artificial intelligence, well, in our technology. And our technology is data block analysis and composition based on music theory. So
right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let me take a pause and let's try to really understand. So I mean, coming from an IT background myself, I mean, I've heard all types of use cases. Okay, let's use technology to automate this certain aspect of the business. Let's use robotics process automation or AI machine learning, or let's say, for example, self-driving cars, because obviously it makes sense and everything, right? Mm-hmm. With the music, I mean, it's just kind of counterintuitive to kind of understand why would people automate something like, for example, creating music, right? So break it down a little bit more for like somebody who's not really coming from a music background, music creation or music composition background. Like, what exactly does it help you do, which otherwise would not be a preferred task for a musician, for example, on the music composition side? Like, there's certain aspects to it that people want not to do, and you feel that the application can do it faster or better, or what exactly can it do?
Okay, great. That's a phenomenal question, actually, right? So, like, what are we replacing? I remember when I was a young salesman and I was selling Sony broadcast equipment in New York, there would be floors of people at typewriters, floors, and they were all replaced with a computer. Like, right? So, like, what functions are we replacing? Like, what are we making better, faster, cheaper, and better, right? One of the biggest problems you have when you're producing, like, and let's set the table. Right now, 100,000 new songs every day go up on Spotify. DIY sites, companies like Lander doing a phenomenal job mastering audio. And so this DIY music thing is enormous. The independent music, TikTok is changing the field and the world of music. I mean, there's things going on all over the world in music, right? So what we're looking at that new producer, and that new producer is going to have a big problem. He's not going to have a budget for musicians. He's not going to be able to get a guitar player, a bass player, a drummer, and blah, blah, blah. He's not going to be able to get all these cats in the studio because he's not going to be able to afford it, right? But with our tool, he can have a really good approximation of a bass player. It's going to sound great. I mean, he's going to have a really good approximation of like the rhythm guitar, and he'll play his leads and stuff and do his all his embellishments, as a human. But for all of the menial tasks, so all of the part writing, we replace all of that. So what would take you typically a day, like for the past 2 years, my studios have been used for a lot of hip hop artists. I've had at night, we've had like 4 producers in here working around the clock. And well, not around the clock, at nighttime. During the day, we wanted to listen to ourselves. So but I got to learn a lot about what they were producing, and that was one of the bigger struggles, was trying to find, I needed to get a guitar player to play this part, or I needed to get a keyboard player to play this part, I needed to get this to play that. And we're helping that. So we're automating that process, or automating the process of the musician that you may not necessarily have there. And you'll see, if you go to Creator Pro YouTube page, the Creator Pro YouTube page, you'll see Will Make Johnson is a producer. He's our producer in residence now here at the studio. He's working extensively with our AI lab. And Will is shooting all of the videos and the how-tos and demonstrations. And one thing that we've really encountered is that, this new type of production, this automation, like it's a new behavior, right? It's so we got to teach a new behavior. And that's our biggest challenge, but your question is great, because like, what's the problem? Like, what are you solving? Like, why'd you do it? Like, why'd you do it? And most people don't know how to write those parts. And then another big problem that we solve is, you're new to writing. It would be great to have like a musical composer grammar checker working with you, so as you're writing your part out, because the way we laid out our GUI, like Midjourney or Dolly, right? We're using descriptors. In music, we only have one type of description. We have our own language. It's called music theory. It's consistent and congruent with every university, from the University of Shanghai, Conservatory of Shanghai, to Paris, to New York. They're teaching the same music theory. And so that's what we based our technology on. That's why our compositions always sound good, because they have a substance basis in actually learning music. So from Pythagoras' string vibration theory through Bach, through and that's where our founder, our CTO, Marcus Matusiak, that's where he started. He started with Bach. He was at 16, he was organ scholar over at Leeds Cathedral, and choir master. That's a pretty big deal. I don't know if you've ever seen those pipe organs. They're pretty daunting. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do. And,
right. Yeah. So actually, much of what you have done is essentially for somebody, let's say, who's not into a kind of, who's new to basically music composition. Basically, he needs a lot of assistance. Obviously, he doesn't understand the complete dynamics of everything. So you simplify the process for them, much like, back in our engineering or software development days, what we studied, I guess, in like CS 101 courses, is that, okay, there are libraries which you can just simply use them rather than kind of reinventing the wheel and actually take things forward, build something on top of that rather than reinventing the wheel. So it makes absolute sense. Interestingly, I was looking at this video of this, Jimmy Fallon show, right? So Charlie Puth, if you know him, so he was on the show and he was like, okay, you can create music out of everything, like anything that has like a certain sound to it associated. If you knock on the table or knock on the wall or something like that. And he took a mug and actually tapped the spoon on it a couple of times and then created a whole music out of it, like through multiple instruments and everything. So it was a very interesting thing. So let's talk a little bit about, like, for example, other utilization of AI in the music industry. Like, for example, we see Netflix and YouTube and all of these things have recommendations engine and everything that utilize AI, right? So what other use cases of AI do you see could be leveraged in the music industry?
Sure. I can speak to I can tell you what's going on right now. I mean, there's doing a lot of AI with metadata to speed things up and to recommend music to you that way, which is pretty logical. I mean, genre, they'll spit back music to you and you're listening to the same stuff, right? But because they know what you're looking for. In our technology, remember I said our patents are in analysis, right? So I can analyze I actually put up a website called, and this is going to be important to this talk, called Music Factor Reports. And Music Factor Reports is a comparative copyright analysis tool that uses our music theory based AI to determine similarities in rhythm and melody of music, which writes a musicologist grade report that you can use to show if you think someone's using a big part of your song, it can match them up to do that. But since we've done that and we're building this database right now, and our AI is right now listening to all of the music of the world, blah, blah, blah. And once we're done, we'll be able to, as a recommendation engine, we could build the function that, okay, Mohammad likes, the key of D, man. He loves this. He loves these passing notes. He loves that. And he likes this heavy metal band called Nightwish, right? And they're dun, 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 and he really digs that. But now we know on a deeper level, on a music theory level, that song actually came from Mussorgsky, this famous classical piece. And the damn thing sounds so like it, right? And then all of a sudden it gets recommended while you're driving the car and you go, I dig this, we can recommend on another level, a deeper level of understanding where I can actually get into your head because I could break down the parts of the things that you favor,
Right. Right. Makes sense.
Again, years from now, they'll be looking at it like, oh, which one did the monkey like to pick up? Oh, he liked that one. Okay, we'll give more of that.
So when it comes to developing these applications, how hard is it to find, for example, resources that can actually develop this? Because obviously you have to find somebody who understands the music, what you're trying to do in the music world, and then you have to map up with something like as complex as artificial intelligence, right? These are like entirely two different universes. So how do you?
I could tell you my newest challenges, what I'm looking for next. Like, this is what I'm looking for next, right? So like for me, we've set the table where we could do composition, and composition is written in a language called MIDI, MIDI, right? The next iteration would be to that MIDI, when you're doing production in a digital audio workstation, this is where the human comes in. The human takes the MIDI, the sheet music, and assigns an instrument to it. So you keep listening to the different synthesizers. Oh, I like that one. And you choose that. And that becomes part of the session, because the MIDI piano on the piano roll where you see the notes play out, that drives the synthesizer sound. And that's where the human comes in, right? So our next part would be to go to a neural net based AI company that can go out and search for the sounds automatically, because then we know the description fields up front, because as we did our data scrape of music, right, we scraped all of the descriptors that we could about that song. So anytime any reviews or whatever the descriptors were of that song, and we got that type of template, right? So we know that we've got all these templates that we call motifs. And a motif would be that simplest bit of music, like the four notes, like dun 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 dun, Beethoven. It's like, okay, we know Beethoven. Dun 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 dun, Smoke on the Water. Deep Purple. I mean, you could go to classic. It's stuff like that lives on, and there's these motifs, right? But where'd that motif come from? I mean, did that motif come from an earlier piece of Renaissance music? So as you analyze music and really get down to the blocks, like think Legos, right? You think Legos at this point when you're a great book for people to read, and I recommend it highly, is Gödel, Escher, Bach. It's a real math piece, and there's a few books you probably should read before you read it about math. But anyway, this is a really great math book, and you'll dig it. I was a math major. I'm sure most of the cats on this podcast will be math guys. They would really dig GEB because it really proves out, like, you know, spirituality, God, however you want to call it, right? It's pretty cool. It takes the work, and there's some terms that he coins in there, and one of them is a term called bloop, right? And you know, and then he has floop, and then he has gloop, and a bloop is a bounded loop, right? That's thing unto itself for learning, right? That's a bounded loop. It's not going to break out. Then there's a floop, which would be a free form loop that would start to develop ideas and concepts, you know. And then there's gloop. That's where the thing is creating all on its own. And I don't know if we're gonna get there. So he coined some pretty neat terms in there in the book. But I recommend it, especially because when you look at Midjourney, you look at Dolly, you look at what OpenAI cats are doing. You know, what we did for the composition part and the analysis part was we focused in evolutionary algorithms. So like if you've played, you know, Go or chess, you probably use Stockfish or one of these training, because I know our head developer, Marcus, you know, is like addicted to it. And that's all his maths games or chess maths games, you know. And this mutation, you know, in a game, it's like win, lose, draw, right? In ours, music could be quite subjective, but what's not subjective and what is 100% objective is music theory. So every time we mutate up against music theory. The score may not be that great, and therefore the sound not that great, but you know, the first few iterations are going to be pretty good. I mean, like when it iterates on something, like the first 20 iterations are pretty neat. It gets pretty messy after that. I mean,
right. So talking of coming kind of when you also mentioned about neural networks and utilizing these technologies, right? So when you leverage these technologies, my understanding is that these systems that you're building, essentially they grow smarter as they listen to more and more music. Like, for example, if they're listening to, let's say, tons of music, after 1 year they're going to go smart and really relate, okay, if this is a tune, it's coming from, for example, that music that was like 50 years ago, 30 years ago. And how do they, first of all, listen to all of this music? Like, how do you feed that? Is that through YouTube, or what's the process for that?
Okay, so there's a few fundamentals, right? The first would be that the music that the data set you train on. So we trained it on our sound alike, because I have all the mechanical licenses, blah blah blah. And we train. We don't need a big data set though. Like I'm not training a neural net, right? Because remember, we're an evolutionary algorithm, so the mutation is going to happen on the music creation side of it, not on the going out and finding it side, right? So that's part of the architecture, right? That's why,
right?
Like but if I want to feed it stuff from something else and mixing and matching different, right? Mixing and matching different templates of composition. Now I can, because now I'll have blues, I'll have this, I'll have that, I'll have the basic templates that I know what the progressions are. I don't need any specific artist, because each would create something individual in their milieu, and you would get it more from the sound than from the melody, right? You're going to get from so like a neural net from us, right? So like the metadata would have, all right, so when we listen to, and I literally been a DJ my entire life. So I have a catalog of every top 100 Billboard hit, either on vinyl, CD. I mean, wow. I must have, oh my gosh, I'd say 20,000 CDs here at the studio. Wow. I mean, I have so much music that we're playing with, and for us, we're not using the music. Like here's the cool part, like our AI listens to the music, and then listens to the sheet music of it, and okay, then now knows it. So now it knows all of the sheet music of but sheet music as our AI understands it, right? So it's listening for something completely different. It's listening for, harmonics. It's listening for different. It's all in our patents. I mean, you read it, you'll see it. I mean, that's what we're listening for, and that's how we know the structure. And but that's how we built the database that way. And now we'll be launching that database in the new year. Not ready for prime time yet, because I want to get it to the part where it can do comparative copyright analysis, and then I want to have enough metadata is more important to me on scraping sites like Google does for the world. They just getting all the data from Wikipedia and getting the data from YouTube and getting the data from, and then having all those data fields. So now I can search when people ask for the descriptors later. So they come and they say, I want Jimi Hendrix guitar, right? So they're using our product, they're writing the thing. They go to the drop down, they look for Jimi Hendrix guitar, and now it'll go and find the samples. The other AI will go out, find the samples, isolate them, recreate them, and get Jimi Hendrix gestural, like, sounds like him playing the guitar, But it would all be done from samples and not from any of the original notes of the artist, or have anything in any shape to do with what the artist had ever written, or any of his IP or any of his notes together. But it's really interesting on the legal end of things. How would you search for that kind of field? You'd have to do in the style of, you could never say I want Jimi Hendrix guitar, because it would be illegal to do that, because you couldn't deliver that. You could do something in the style of, you could deliver that, but you couldn't deliver his actual guitar, because he's no longer with us. And anything else would be a sample, and that's a whole nother part of music law, that we're not sampling anything. We're not recreating any musical notes of the original composition. We're just, here's the hard part. You got to really wrap your head around this one. We're learning how to write like the writer. Software is learning to write like the writer, and now we'll write like that writer. So it's your,
and that's the whole objective, right? Like, try to be like the mentor, try to be like the greatest players and everything. So quick question, like your personal favorites. I mean, obviously you mentioned that we've got like thousands and thousands of collections of music. So who are you a fan of? Like, are you like more kind of do you follow metal music? Do you like jazz? Are you like what type of music do you typically listen to?
Well, for all you LinkedIn guys out there, if you come to my site every single morning, I review a piece of vinyl. And it, like today was Dave Brubeck Timeout. Like, it's one of my Desert Island discs. It was the first million selling jazz song. It was the most popular jazz album of all times. And it's just delightful to listen to, right? But yesterday was Made in Japan by Deep Purple, Smoke on the Water. That's why I referenced that. And the day before that was probably Deja Vu, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and then it'll be Led Zeppelin, and then it'll be some new artist, like if I get a new piece of vinyl. But most of my stuff is the classic rock, new wave, punk, jazz. I have a lot of big jazz collection. Country, I like country. I mean, I like a lot of music, so I just like collecting it on vinyl, because I just like the tactile feel of it. So for me, the guy doing AI music loves vinyl records, right? So, because I have a true appreciation of music, and I think that, teaching a new generation music theory, and that's what we've based our product in, and I believe will affect, because I've seen it here in the studio happen already. I've seen, young producers have a cognition. They go, "Oh wow, and they realize using our software, as they mapped out what they were, because like in like DALL-E or Midjourney and those things, you use words, right? But music theory, we created dials like upper range, lower range, modulation per measure, how many measures, so it's all spelled out in music theory, how you're going to want this part written. Like, that's how you would tell somebody to play the bass, right? Okay, I want you to do this, 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 and this. Okay, these are the notes I want you to play. Okay, great, go. And that's what you tell the software. And we teach people how to communicate in music theory. And it's interesting because they get it once they start playing with the dials, and oh, that's what that is. So it's a real hands-on practical application of technology.
Right.
And that's what excites me.
Right.
But yeah, I really love music. I'm sorry I talk a whole lot. I get real excited.
No, absolutely. I really thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, especially talking about like, I myself have been a fan of Pink Floyd, and on metal side, I've listened to Metallica and all of those, like even Nirvana and all of those bands. But yeah, thank you so much, Joseph, for taking the time out for this episode. It was really fun. I try to have like people from the tech space and yet trying to impact a certain industry. So it was really kind of helpful as well as kind of enlightening in the sense that, okay, now music industry leveraging AI. So really looking forward to kind of staying connected. And thank you so much for taking the time for this podcast.
Great. Hey, if you got time on the 27th, I can send you the link. I'm going to be on a Web3 podcast where we're talking about how we're using these NFTs to do we're making digital twins, where we're talking about we're going to make a digital twin of existing artists, and with their authorization, it's their name, it's going to be their mix pack, and it's going to be an NFT that you'll be able to create on. So this whole new phenomenon of the digital twin, you heard about with Bruce Willis, right, in the movies and stuff. So we're now going to do it with artists' writing style, so they can clone their writing style and do something unique and create new intellectual property, new sound recording, and new publishing.
Right.
So we're really excited about that. So if you got time on the 27th, I'll send you a link.
Sure. Thank you. We'd love to do that. Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much, Joseph. Have a great day.
Thank you.